Jock, brand new segment, Between Two Oaks. Today, we're going to discuss important things in the fantasy world. To my right is Big John Devona, big-time champion of Docs and Jock. And to my left is Mr. Nick Correo. So, what are we going to discuss today? Well, today we're going to discuss auto drafts. Now, I'm not talking about the auto drafts that are online, because of COVID, whatever it is. I'm talking about your league has a offline live draft, but not everybody can make it. If your league has 10 to 12, players in it, it's hard to make everyone kind of make that at the same time. Some people have other commitments, et cetera, et cetera. So some of those people are automatically going to auto draft. Now, if your league has those rules and everybody's okay with it, yeah, is it legal to auto draft and everything? Yes, of course. If you win, do you get paid? Yes, of course. But how legitimate is an auto draft win when you literally did not pick your team? Because your first 3 or 4 picks, you're not getting rid of those guys, right, Nick?
No, not at all. I mean, also, how legitimate is your win on an auto draft team during COVID?
I did not think about that. That's a very good point.
It's like double asterisk right
Because you're the ad drop king of this league, at least.
Sure.
You're gonna ad drop during the league. Fine, we get that, right? Like, you're gonna do that. But again, your main core of players are drafted for you, and here you are going to win a championship with those. What do you think? Is it legitimate or is it not legitimate?
I think there has to be rules set before you start. I think that's number one thing is how you do the auto draft, because there are auto drafts that you can do that make it's okay if everyone agrees to it. But if you're going into the draft not knowing and certain people aren't showing up, and then you do the draft and then it turns into everybody trying to pick for somebody else, I don't like that.
A very good point. So what you're saying is that if everyone knows who's going to make it and who's not going to make it and what positions you are going to be in, you can plan ahead for those people not being there. But in a draft where the draft position is decided on the day of the draft, that makes it very impossible.
It's true. That makes a difference. So
that makes a difference.
It does. So
back to his point then, the reason of why you can't make the live draft, is that really important? Does it matter?
Well, no, it's just, a lot of times poor planning. It's like you can have 6 or 7 dates out there, and it gives them more than enough time to plan for it. Now, I guess you can get a pass if you're out of country for work, but otherwise, there's no reason to be able to not make it.
Yeah, everyone will have an excuse. Everyone's got an excuse. It's a matter of, I don't think you can just really use excuses. It sucks. Sometimes, someone does have a really good excuse, but how do you weigh that against somebody else's that thinks their excuse is much more important? It's going to always be that way if you have excuses.
So at that point, it becomes just subjective, then, you're saying.
Absolutely.
So an auto draft win is an auto draft win is an auto draft win is what you two are saying, is what I'm saying, Nick?
Yes, correct.
Agreed.
You agree as well?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so then the reason why you can't make the draft doesn't matter. Your players are chosen for you. I think what I'm hearing from these two is that your auto draft win is really not that legitimate. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Unless you go and you end up having to pick an entirely new team through the waiver wire, like, Big John over there. But if you sit there and you have an auto draft team and it takes you all the way to the finals, how legitimate is that? It really isn't.
That's a very good point. I didn't think about that because, like you, Big John, you got a lot of injuries this year.
Yes,
correct? With your first 2 picks, or top, very top picks.
My second, third, and fourth picks, I think all injuries.
You literally had to redraft the team.
Pretty much. So.
On the fly. And you still made the playoffs with Docs and Jocks, is that correct?
That is correct. So I think the problem is, yes, there's going to be injuries, so that's part of the game and everything else. But like you were saying earlier, some of those players, if they go all the way through the year, they're going to be really good. And so, it's hard to judge. There's going to be times if someone auto-drafted and if they got those injuries, on their players, that you go, oh, well, look, auto-draft didn't work for them.
Correct.
It's a hard thing to gauge.
It's a toss-up. Fantasy is a toss-up at the end of the day. So, what would you say would be a great what's the word? What kind of rules should be set in place? Let me preface the question, okay? So you're doing the auto draft, right? And people are picking, the top-rated player for you. It used to be said that you having just an auto draft was pain enough. It was penalty enough for you to be auto drafted, right? But as we saw this year, the 2 finalists were auto drafted. So that's really not the case. So I wouldn't say penalty, but what would you do on the next draft for those people that are not here? Would you just pick the top-rated player and then have no concern whatsoever for their positions? So if you don't have a quarterback and if your auto draft just didn't take you to a tight end or a defense or a kicker, then so be it. You then have to go add drop at the end, when you get home or whenever you get to do it. Is that a safeguard, or are there other ideas that you have?
I think it'd be great if you have the lineup and you have to go down by the entire lineup. So your first pick would start from the top, be a quarterback, and then depending on how the lineup is set, if it's a wide receiver next, then you get your wide receiver next. And you have to fill up a starting lineup first, and then it's the best player available.
Okay, well that's an idea. So then you are auto drafting their lineup. So you take, and what would you say would would RB be the first one? Wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, whatever, or and then when would you pick a kicker and a defense?
Well, it would have to be, as the lineup is stated, either from the top down or the bottom up.
I like the bottom up idea.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
You do not vary from that, because I think if you go in best available and you get 2 great running backs back to back, I mean, that kind of rewards you for not being there. So go ahead and just draft their starting lineup from top to bottom. And I understand that throws a whole wrench into things, because most people don't take a quarterback in the first round.
Correct.
So you take a quarterback in the first round, you take the best quarterback, but it also handicaps you because you might not have the best wide receiver or the best running back.
That's definitely an idea. Big John, what do you say?
Yeah, I think what he's saying makes sense. I think then you have to figure out what your order is going to be, and then if it's, I think most people do quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whatever you're going to do. So it might not make too much of a difference to the first few plays, except for maybe quarterback. So to me, the bigger thing is actually making sure that they pick kicker, defense on that route, because that's where you're going to lose your. To me that's the worst thing, because then it's like, okay, did you really want to pick a defense in the 7th round? Did you really want to pick a kicker in 8th round? Even tight end. Did you really want to pick the tight end in the 7th round? Because after you get to a certain point, there's certain players that there's no way you would pick because of the way you're auto drafting, and that's a penalty.
Okay, that's one idea as well. The only thing with that, Big John, is that you're still filling up your entire lineup as you need to do it. And in the 7th, 8th round, you are getting some gems, but it's nothing like the first few rounds. Wouldn't
like
a bigger
Deebo Samuel, Joe Burrow? I mean,
It's
you
like,
want to go down the list. There's plenty of people
so like
that
the way you have everything set up, right? It's a quarterback first, and then 2 wide receivers, and then a running back, and then a tight end, and then that would be a decision of either you choose your flex spots, or do you choose the defense and the kicker first, and then your flex spots. So because the flex spots can be looked at as from a bench spot, right?
See, for me, you know what I think, Nick? For me, I truly think that you just take the best available player, you take the thinking completely out of it, no spots to worry about, okay? Because you're making somebody else do this for you, right? No things to worry about. And if you don't get a quarterback, you go to the waiver wire. If you don't get a tight end, you go to the waiver wire. If you don't get a kicker, if you don't get a defense, you hit the waiver wire at the end, whatever's left over. And I think that's the biggest penalty. So you're still getting some top-ranked players. You're getting whatever's available. That's the next man up in the ranking. But now at the end of the draft, to fulfill your team, you now have to go to work and get people off the waiver wire, and you're not getting the best at that point. John, what do you say?
No, I mean, I see what you're saying. I still like the other way, because I still think the bigger penalty is having to pick a position that you would not want to pick 7th, 8th, 9th round. Because that to me is a bigger deal. To me, You know, sure, there's some people that like to take defense 7th, 8th round, but most don't. So you got, you know, in many of
Some
these
people like to take people that look
like
good, or they're good looking, or have cool names.
People have all kinds of reasons, but the point is that most people don't do that, so you're at a disadvantage because when you start looking at where that's ranked, you go, man, 7th round person, did I really want that defense or did I want Samuel?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, Nick.
Because I mean, there's people that have the strategy of kickers and defenses don't matter. You can just get them off the waiver wire.
Some people don't even draft them.
Exactly, and then you know they still make the playoffs, even you know with their entire team injured. So I think it's too much of a reward if you take the best available, and then you're going to have this continuous problem.
So then you both are in agreement of spots, taking positions. Now the only question is which positions, and I guess we'll have to discuss that throughout the year and say, okay, these, if you're auto drafting, this is the positions that you're going to be drafted for, and then it's based available.
Well, I think it would be exactly how you have your lineup set.
So a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, a defense, a kicker, a kicker, a defense, and then everybody else.
Yes, because the flex spots should be looked at as bench spots.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you're kind of giving them a penalty by.
So then would you take two wide receivers after the quarterback, like we're set up in the Yahoo League?
If that's the way you're set up, that's how I would.
So as you're just going down the line, you are omitting the two flex spots. So you're saying quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, kicker, defense. That's what you're taking. Best
Absolutely.
available. John?
I like that. No, I didn't even think of it that way. But yeah, that'd be a penalty for sure. Because yeah, you start doing defense 5th, 6th round, people are gonna be like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted." So I think that's actually a pretty good idea. I wasn't even thinking taking it before your flex spot. So yeah, if you're taking it before your flex spots, yeah,
That's it. I think that's a good idea. We'll see what happens next year and what this crazy commissioner decides. Thank you, everyone. It was Docs and Jocks between two Oaks. I hope you enjoyed our first segment. Good night and Happy New Year.